Hello, ladies, and welcome to another episode of the Autoimmune Rehab Podcast, where, as always, you can find and download show notes and listen to other episodes at autoimmunerehab.com. Today's episode is sponsored by my free thyroid health email kit download that you can get by going to the website where you can access old archives of this show, autoimmunerehab.com, or visiting the homepage of my blog, annalaraBrown.com. And with no further ado, let's get started with today's episode, which I feel like has some really important nuggets where we will be talking about the opposite of what I usually talk about, which is the positive things you can do to help heal your thyroid and Hashimoto's. Today, we're going to be talking about 10 things that will not heal your Hashimoto's on this topic of reversing Hashimoto's. I feel like it's important to address these things because a lot of these things involve around myths and other things where people think that they can reverse their Hashimoto's by doing some of these things, but the reality is that they will not be able to do that. So the first one that I want to talk about is probably the most important that is out there of these 10 things that will not reverse your Hashimoto's. And number one is getting your thyroid removed. A lot of people, for some reason, think that because Hashimoto's is a thyroid autoimmune or an autoimmune that affects your thyroid, that if you get your thyroid removed, then that means you won't have Hashimoto's anymore. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. And if you hear this from a doctor, which I've had people tell me that they hear it from doctors, then you need to fire that doctor because that doctor doesn't understand enough about the immune system and about autoimmunity and the thyroid if they actually think that getting your thyroid removed will get rid of your Hashimoto's. Because the reality is that Hashimoto's at its core is more of an autoimmune or an immune disorder that happens to be attacking the thyroid, but getting rid of the thyroid does not get rid of the Hashimoto's. So I hate to say it to you if some of you are listening to this and you've had your thyroid removed and you think that somehow maybe you don't have Hashimoto's anymore, or you're under the impression that removing the thyroid is the easy solution to reversing your Hashimoto's, because nothing could be further from the truth. And Hashimoto's affects a lot more in your body than just your thyroid. So that's the first myth or thing that I want to point out, that something that will not reverse your Hashimoto's. Okay, then number two is relying only on medication. Now, I did another episode just a couple weeks ago about this, about how to know whether or not your thyroid medication is working, and talking about how just taking medication will not reverse your Hashimoto's. So if you need more details on that, I'd like to invite you to go back to the archives and listen to that episode. But the reality is that just taking medication will not reverse your Hashimoto's if that's the only thing that you do. Okay, then number three is living the same lifestyle you did before you were diagnosed. The reality is that healing and putting Hashimoto's into remission will require you to have some changes in your lifestyle. And if you continue down the same diet, the same lifestyle, the same life you had before, then I'm sorry to break it to you, but your Hashimoto's will not get reversed. While reversing Hashimoto's can be done, it is really hard and complicated, and it will not happen if you just continue to live the same lifestyle and have the same habits that you had before. Okay, number four, continuing to eat gluten. This is another big one, and gluten definitely triggers autoimmune issues in a lot of people, can affect the thyroid, things like that. And if you really want to reverse Hashimoto's, then you really do have to give up gluten. And I know there's some people out there that will say, no, but you only have to do it if you have celiac disease, or, if you only have to do it if you feel like it's bothering you. But the reality is that gluten is going to be causing you issues if you have Hashimoto's, and if you really want to reverse it, you do have to give it up. Okay, then number five, ignoring your stress. The reality is that stress can be a really big trigger for Hashimoto's, and if you continue to ignore your stress in a stress-filled life, then you will not reverse your Hashimoto's. So in some cases, for some people, this may even mean that you need to make a job or a career change, or make some other pretty drastic changes in order to reduce the amount of stress you have in your life, because the more stress you have, the worse that will impact your Hashimoto's and your thyroid. Okay, then number six is not acknowledging any trauma you have experienced. Now, trauma can come in all different forms. Trauma can be in the force of abuse. It could be in the force of things like relationship issues, divorce. It could be from getting fired from a job. It could be from all kinds of things. And you really need to heal yourself and your life and your past and any kind of trauma that you have in order to really reverse your Hashimoto's. Because the reality is that all autoimmune conditions have some kind of a emotional component to it as well. And if you don't believe this, I like to invite you to go back and listen to some of the other episodes that I have in my archives. One of the specific ones would be like the one on healing autoimmune with hypnosis with my friend Holly Stokes and a few others, where they talk about the components that emotional well-being has on the thyroid and on autoimmune conditions. Okay, then number 7 is continuing to eat a lot of processed foods. The reality is that processed food is really not good for you and for you, but even more so, it's not good for your immune system and your thyroid, your Hashimoto's, that kind of thing. So if you continue to eat a lot of processed foods, you are not going to go into remission with your Hashimoto's and you're not going to reverse it. Okay, the number 7 is ignoring it. I think sometimes people think, well, I can just, whatever, ho-hum, live the life I want. I can just ignore the fact that I have Hashimoto's and maybe it'll eventually go away. Well, reality is it won't. And if you're having a lot of severe symptoms, especially, then I'm sure you are well aware by now that ignoring it is not going to fix it. Number 9 is not healing your adrenals and your adrenal gland in addition to your thyroid. This is something that was really, really hit home for me, especially when I went through a thyroid healing training course with Andrea Beeman. And if you don't know who she is, she's really worth looking up. You can check her out at andreabeeman.com. And she has a lot of things. She's written a book also called Healthy, Happy Thyroid that is really good that you can get on Amazon or from other places. I've talked about it on my blog as well. And the connection between the thyroid and the adrenal glands is something that, again, a lot of doctors don't emphasize enough. Sometimes I think they're just not taught because of the medical system approach to have specialists focus only really on one core aspect of the body. But the problem is that a lot of us end up with really some severe stress and even fatigue in the adrenal glands. And while adrenal fatigue is a term that's thrown out there a lot, adrenal fatigue isn't really necessarily a real diagnosis, but having that fatigue and stress on the adrenal glands can then in turn also cause some issues with the thyroid. So if you don't really focus on also helping to heal your adrenals, then you're not going to in turn heal your thyroid and end up reversing your Hashimoto's. Okay, and then last but not least, number 10 is ignoring the root cause. So there's a lot of different root causes. There's a lot of different reasons why you could have gotten Hashimoto's in the first place, and you don't want to ignore that. You want to do what you can to figure out the root cause. So, for me personally, I had some mercury fillings in my mouth that leaked, and I think that was possibly part of it, along with some digestive issues, the trauma of getting fired from a job, all kinds of things that combined and exploded and stress and other things into probably creating my Hashimoto's. I haven't really necessarily found a definitive root cause for sure yet at this point, but I mean, really, really tricky. But you don't want to just ignore your root cause. You want to try to see if you can figure out some of the reasons why you got your Hashimoto's, figure that out, and then it can make it easier for you to know what action steps to take to reverse your Hashimoto's. So anyhow, at the end of the day, let me re-summarize for you again these 10 things that will not work to reverse your Hashimoto's so that you can have them as a reference. Number 1 is removing your thyroid. Number 2 is relying only on medication. Number 3 is living the same lifestyle you did before you were diagnosed. Number 4 is continuing to eat gluten. Number 5 is ignoring your stress. Number 6 is not acknowledging any trauma you have experienced, working on healing that trauma. Number 7 is continuing to eat a lot of processed foods. Number 8 is ignoring it. Number 9 is not healing your adrenals in addition to your thyroid. And number 10 is ignoring the root cause. So hopefully you have found this episode at least somewhat enlightening. If you would like to contact me or do a free call, you will find the information in the show notes to do that. Take care. Thanks for listening and stay tuned as we will have a lot of upcoming episodes. I'm going to be getting back to doing some amazing interviews with some people and would love to have you subscribe to this show so that you will get notification when there are new episodes available. Also, if you would mind giving me a rating and a review. If you've enjoyed and found this helpful, I would greatly appreciate it.